hold up, I am on my way, I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean. Yeah, let's go outside. We can hang out on the beach without freezing. Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie. Today's video is brought to you by Skillshare. Today I'm going to do 10 of my best coastal fall sign DIYs using supplies from the Dollar Tree. The first coastal fall DIY I have for you today is a Hello Fall leaf sign. I love how this sign turned out. I think it's really stunning and I can't wait to show you how I put it all together. So let's get started. Okay, this project, oh my gosh, I thought it was going to be a little basic, but it turned out so cute. I'm just using one of these signs from the Dollar Tree. Maybe like 8x8 or 7x7. And I'm using some of this adhesive wallpaper. Only one of my Dollar Trees has this, but they have it in all different kinds. It's so pretty. And all it is a peel and stick wallpaper. And it's perfect to make a sign. Because what it is it's gonna match. That original sign was like a white shiplap. And so it's still like that on the side, so I don't even have to worry about the sides. I can just peel off this wallpaper and cover up that welcome to our wedding. Look how easy that is. Now you could kind of still read the writing through there. If I was going to be able to see that, I would have painted that ivory first so that you wouldn't have been able to see the message through, but I'm gonna put that fall leaf on here, that wood leaf that I got at the Dollar Tree. And so what I'm doing now is just standing up around the edges to make sure that I got it on there perfect and that it is cut to size and it's not hanging off at all. And I love it. Okay, so my plan is to attach the leaf like that to my sign, and it is a hanging sign. So I'm just cutting off the string from our maple leaf, and then it's got 2 holes left from that I don't need, so I am using some spackle from the Dollar Tree and just filling those in. And this project kind of evolved. I was thinking I wanted like beachy white, which is the background. I was wanting like some blues and some browns on my leaf, and so I want the back leaf to be blue. So this is that agave that I mixed with a little bit of pool. My leftover paint, I had just enough to finish this project. And I'm just having to use a little tiny brush to get the design here on the inside because I don't really want to take this apart. I want it to be a multi-dimensional sign like this. So I just carefully went in there, and then I am using a foam brush around the edges to make my back leaf this pretty color of beachy blue. And then I'm going in there with my little brush too to get it in close to that top leaf. And I am getting a little bit of paint on there, but I don't think you're going to be able to tell. I'm trying to do it as cleanly as possible. That would be really hard to tape that off. So I'm trying to make sure that you can't see like any like raw wood. I really want this back leaf to look blue. So once I get that on there, I am just drying that real quick. And what I'm going to do is make the top leaf like look like wood. So I'm going to end up using some antique wax by Waverly to do that. But first I was a little worried about the blue paint that I did get on that sign. So I'm just kind of going over that with some of this ivory chalk paint to brighten that up before I go in and stain that. So I'm kind of going to do the same thing that I did on the pumpkins, where I do the ivory and then I'm going to do the antique wax over the top of it to make it look like wood. And I'm not worried about the paint that I'm getting on the sides there because I'm just going to go ahead and use that to distress. So I'm just using a baby wipe and going all around and blending that in with my blue, and it gave me a nice distressed leaf. And I actually added more because I needed a little bit more distressing. And I got my primer for my top leaf done and my distressing done all like there in one step. And I'm just trying to touch up here and there. I even tried to distress the inside. I don't know what I was thinking. And I really love that color of blue on the leaf. I think it looks so coastal. So we're ready for the antique wax. And I'm just gonna drag that in one direction and paint that on there, trying to be as clean as possible. If I distress the back leaf, it's no big deal, but I wanna make sure that this front leaf looks like stained wood. So I'm carefully going all over and just making sure that I am working in one direction to give me that pretty wood grain. And then going in with my baby wipe again to kind of distress with any that got on my blue leaf. When you distress projects, they're so forgiving. And touching that up all around. And I really love that wood leaf on top of the blue leaf. I think that looks really fun. And kind of wiping off the excess stain. A little bit too much came off. And so I will have to touch that up here in just a second. And I'm just going to go over it again to fill up any spaces that I took off too much of the stain. And just touching up here and there until I think it looks perfect. And sometimes you can mess with these projects too much. All right, the next step is I thought it would be fun to wrap the stem of the leaf in a little bit of this twine. I think it gives everything a finished look, and I think it definitely goes with the coastal vibe for fall. So I just used a little bit of hot glue and then just simply wrapping that twine all the way around my little maple leaf stem. Now I was trying to think how I can make this more coastal. I think the twine makes it more coastal, and I'm thinking about adding maybe some seashells to this sign as well. So I make sure I get it all covered, and then I'm just gonna hot glue off the end and trim it. And I kind of want it to be at an angle when I put it on my little sign, kind of like that. I think that looks kind of cool. And this is when I started thinking about shells. How can I put shells on here? And I'm just kind of playing around, seeing if I want to use big ones, if I want to use small ones. Just going through my little shell stash. My husband was laughing at me because I was getting low on shells that I used to craft with, so I bought some on Amazon. And he's like, you could have just went to the beach. And I'm like, oh, but look how pretty they are. But he's right. I probably could have just went to the beach. But Amazon's next day, right? So I'm just going to attach my maple leaf to my sign now. I'm trying to put hot glue only where it's not going to be overlapping the edges, and securing that to our sign. Now, these signs are not very sturdy. They're nice size, but they're real lightweight. So I will have to do something to make it stand up. And I was thinking 3 little shells was the perfect little addition. And they kind of look like, you know, acorns on my little fall sign. But instead, they're little seashells. And I'm just going to simply attach those to our sign with a little bit of hot glue. And after this, I really thought I was done, but then I was like, looking at it, I'm like, it's beautiful, but it needs something else. What does it need? And then I found something perfect to finish this project. I thought that first sign, you know, that I got, the Target sign, had the little wood cutouts. They had like pumpkins. They had Hello Fall. And so I am going to try to use that Hello Fall on here. And you know your girl loves distressing, so I'm just going over with my chunky brush to go around the edges, just to kind of give it one last little distress. I don't think you can distress too much. And after that, I really am done painting this leaf, I swear. All right, there's the Hello Fall. And the really cool thing about these wood cutouts is they're stickers. They're really thick, they're really nice. It's a perfect cut. And I'm just peeling off the back of my sticker, and I'm just gonna use that to attach it to my wood leaf. Easy peasy, and I think this was the perfect final touch to the sign. What do you think? I think this is my favorite project. I really love how it turned out. It's so coastal and so fall. And so again, I was saying this is probably not gonna stand up, and nope, it won't. So I'm just gonna use some of these giant Jenga blocks that I got at Five Below, just to put them inside the bottom of the frame to weigh it down. And you can use whatever you want. You could even use the mini Jenga blocks for this too. You'll just have to probably use quite a few of them because you need the weight. I'm kind of playing around with it. I don't really want it to be sticking out. And so I'm just gonna use hot glue to attach that kind of in the center. And I think I'm gonna need 2 of them for the weight to make sure that this sign doesn't tip over, because it's a little top heavy with all the stuff that attached to the front of it too. And that is the final step in this fall DIY. And I have one more for you. There it is. And this is how it looks on my shelf. I think it's so pretty. I love the blue colors, and we're going to be using a lot of that today for our DIYs. Okay, the next coastal fall DIY is going to be a fabric leaf sign that says, "It's fall, y'all." Let's go. All leaves for my projects today. And I found this wood leaf from the Dollar Tree, and I wanted to try a new technique. Now, I heard that you could attach fabric or paper to wood with a Ziploc bag or plastic wrap. So I'm going to try it with plastic wrap. So I just have my pressing pillow just because my parchment paper, my wood leaf I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to cover that with some plastic wrap. And then I am going to put the fabric on top. Now I picked up this fabric at Dollar Tree. It's like a light blue and white gingham. And I thought it was really pretty and kind of goes with my coastal decor in my house. And I like blue for fall. I think it's fun. So I'm just going to cover up the plastic wrap. And then I'm also going to put some parchment paper on top just to protect my Easy Press. And that's what I'm going to use. I'm just using it at 400 degrees. I don't think it really matters. If you don't have an Easy Press, an iron I think will definitely work too. And I'm just trying to melt that plastic, and that's what's going to attach the fabric to the wood leaf. So I really don't know how long it's going to take. So I'm just kind of moving my iron around, trying to get it hot enough to make that plastic wrap work. And this is a way easier, cleaner method than Mod Podge, I think. And I really like it. I'll definitely be trying this again. I think want to try it with like scrapbook paper. So I'm just kind of ironing all around now because I want to make sure that that fabric is attached, all the little points on that leaf. And I think that about does it. So let's see what we've got. I'm going to turn the fabric over, take off the parchment paper. Now the plastic that was around the leaf, the extra plastic was actually really easy to remove because it kind of all stuck together, and so you can just peel that right off. and it is secured to the leaf really well. So now the chore is to cut the fabric from around the leaf, and that was probably the most time-consuming part of this project. The melting the plastic was totally easy, and I would totally recommend it. It worked really, really well. So I'm going in with my scissors, and I'm trying to cut as close to the wood as I can. And I start with my fabric scissors here, but they couldn't get quite close enough around all of those little corners. So I'm going to switch to my little tiny scissors, little detail scissors. And I'm going to go all the way around this leaf and trim that as close as I can get to the wood. I was thinking that this was probably like the wrong first project to try this with because of all the intricate cutting. But I just took my time and went all the way around and trimmed all the fabric. And I'm speeding this way up because it did take a little bit. But it stuck really well. Now, I'm not really worrying about the fraying from cutting the fabric because I'm going to actually go in there with that sanding block from the Dollar Tree and rough it up because I think it would look even cooler with a little bit of distressed fabric around the edges and give it even more texture. I really like the idea of putting fabric on a sign. Anytime I can bring some texture in, I think it's gonna make it look more rustic. I really like that vibe. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going around and trying to rough up any little corners that I can get to with the fabric and just make it fray just a little bit. And I get it about how I want it. Just want it to look a little bit rustic. I mean, I don't want like the frays to be really long. And so I do go in here and just trim up a few of them. It looked a little extra rough just because I didn't want it to like, fall apart. I wanted it to be pretty intact when I go to attach this to my fall sign. So I love these chalkboards from the Dollar Tree. They're easy to find, they're really thick, they're flat, and so they make great signs. I'm going to go ahead and cut some of this contact paper from the Dollar Tree to cover the back of my sign, just because I like the back of my signs and projects to be finished too. I think it looks better, and that way I can work with the back, which is solid black. And I won't have to worry about covering up all of that writing that was on the front of the sign. So I'm just going to use my sanding block from the Dollar Tree and go around the edges, and that's going to give me a perfectly clean cut around my borders and give me a really clean back to my project. And I like to do the back first because if you did it last, then you might mess up your final project, and that would be no good. So I'm going to have the sign go up and down like it was originally made. That way I can use the same holes there on the top. But the only thing bad about the back of the sign is that giant sticky tag. So I'm trying to figure out the scraper I picked up at the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to use heat with my heat gun and a scraper to try to get that tag off. It's really stuck on there really well. I wish they wouldn't use so much adhesive on this one. Or put a tag on the string would be good. So you can see there's still a lot of adhesive on there, so I do have to use some Goo Gone to clean up the back of that sign, so I will have a nice, beautiful, flat surface to work with for my fall sign. Okay, that's much better. You can still see it, but it's like not sticky, and once I'm done with it, you won't be able to see that. So the first thing I'm going to do is go all over with like a sloppy coat of this ivory chalk paint by Waverly. Now, what I want to do with this sign is make it look like a wood sign, but I don't want it to be like a dark wood. And so if I were to do like anti-wax over the black, it's going to give me a really dark wood look. But if I do the anti-wax over ivory, it's going to give me a light color of wood, which goes more with my beach decor in my house and the vibe I wanted with this sign. So I kind of all went in one direction there. So I would have some, variations, the stripes like it would be in wood. And one coat is all it's going to take for that. I don't want really good coverage because I do want it to look kind of like wood. And I'm just drying that chalk paint with my heat gun. And then I'm going to go in with that Antique Wax by Waverly and my chunky brush. And I am just going to go up and down, just like I did with the ivory paint. And be really sloppy so that my lines aren't straight. I kind of want them to vary a little bit. And you can do whatever you want to try to make it look like wood. You can put like a little circle in here or there to make it kind of look like a knot. Just kind of go all over and give it kind of a random look. And that's going to give you way more of a wood look. Now I'm going to go in with just a paper towel and wipe off the excess. That paper towel had a design on it. It actually put the design on there, which was kind of cool. But I'm just kind of wiping off the excess. And look, it kind of looks like wood, right? I was impressed by how this turned out. I think it looks really kind of cool. So once I have all the excess wax off, that is going to do it for the finish of that sign. So I'm just giving it a dry to dry that antique wax so that I can keep working on this fall sign. And I want to put the leaf on the bottom like that. So I am going to measure how much room I have for some writing. And what I'm going to do is cut out a stencil with my Cricut so that I can hand paint something on the top of that sign. And this is it. I got the stencil paper on Amazon. I'll post a link for it below. It's really good. I'm really impressed with it so far. And I'm going to put "It's Fall, Y'all" on this sign. I thought it was cute, and I kind of off-centered it like that so that maybe the leaf tip can come up on the right side. So I'm going to use some of my paper transfer paper and attach that stencil to my sign. This is one of my favorite things for my Cricut is making stencils. I love hand-painted signs. I think they look so pretty. So just putting that on there, making sure it's down good, and then I'm just going to go around the edges of my stencil with some painter's tape so that I don't get paint anywhere I don't want it. And I'm going to use that ivory chalk paint again by Waverly and just one of those foam stencil brushes from the Dollar Tree and pounce all over that. Now you have to kind of be careful usually when you're drawing those stencils that you don't melt it with the heat gun. But this stencil seems pretty thick. I haven't had any problems with it melting. So I went in there with a second coat of the ivory because I really want it to be really bright when I pull off the stencil. And there you go, it's fall, y'all. Just gotta weed out the center of those cursive signs. And I may have taken it off a little soon because I did mess up the F just a tiny bit. So I'm just touching that up with a small paintbrush until it looks pretty good. And drying that with my heat gun. And I'm going to go ahead and use that same rope that came on the sign before and just pop it through the back there. And I like my knots to be on the front. That way it will lay against the wall a little bit better. Now I want to attach this leaf to the front, and I kind of like it like that. So I'm going to use a combination of wood glue and hot glue, if I can get it there. There we go. That way it'll stay on there quickly, yet that wood glue is going to hold it on and secure. And that's all there is to that sign. I love how it turned out. I really liked that method of using the plastic wrap and the fabric on the wood. How cute is that? And then there was a little area over there on the side that I thought needed a little something. So I'm going to use some of this raffia from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to attempt to. I hate working with this stuff because it's so messy. And then I'm just going to try to make a simple bow with the raffia just to attach over just another texture for the sign. I didn't like my first one, so here I am attempting bow number 2. I thinned it out a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of trim it up to make it look not so crazy. And then I'm just going to attach that to the sign with a dot of hot glue. And the first project is in the books. What do you guys think? I think this sign turned out really cute. I love the subtle beachy vibes of this with the wood and the blue, but just some beachy blue colors, but it definitely gives you that coastal vibe. And let's talk about today's sponsor today. It's Skillshare. I love Skillshare. It's an online learning community where you can learn how to do just about anything. When I first signed up for Skillshare, the first thing that I wanted to learn how to do was to make some of my video editing better for my videos here on YouTube. And so I wanted to try a new software, but I had no idea how to use it. So I just typed that in the search engine, and look, I get so many available courses to teach me how to use this video editing software. I did find a great course. The course that I took was video editing with Final Cut Pro X from beginner to YouTuber, and that was by Ali Abdal. It was 3 hours long. He took me through and showed me exactly how to use the software and even showed me how he edits his own video. So what a great resource. But you know your girl's not just going to be all tech on here, right? Of course, I'm going to go immediately and just type in crafting, right? So when I type in crafting, you can kind of see there's some ideas that pop up. And then I was like, resin crafting, that sounds like that could be great. I have no idea how to do that. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through to see what I can learn today on Skillshare. And oh yeah, I think we have a winner. I would love to learn how to do this, to use the resin to make like an ocean scene. Oh, that's so beautiful. And I have good news. I'm going to post a link in the description below, and the first 1,000 of my Crafty Beach Bums to use that link, you're going to get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So you can try out Skillshare for yourself. What would you like to learn how to do? And thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the coastal DIYs. On this DIY, we're going to take one of those long, skinny signs from the Dollar Tree and make a coastal version of a farm fresh pumpkin sign. So let's get started. Shout out to Dollar Tree for giving us crafters plain signs. Check these out. They have a little pumpkin cut out. They're plain on both sides, and I used all my agave chalk paint. Oh my gosh, don't worry, I had another bottle, thank goodness. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to paint this little pumpkin sign agave. You can do whatever color matches your decor or whatever vibe you're going for your Halloween. But look how easy this is. I didn't have to finish the back. I didn't have to take any glitter off. Shout out Dollar Tree. I'm so proud of you for giving us crafters a plain sign. Now, it did take several coats of the agave chalk paint to give me a blue color because it was black, and you could kind of see that through. If I would have painted it first with ivory, it would have definitely taken less of the agave paint, but that's okay. I just go over it until I'm happy with the coverage. And how cute is that little pumpkin cutout at the top? I thought this would make a perfect farm fresh pumpkin sign for my wall. And I can use the existing hanging holes at the top as well. All right, I've about got it, I think. Now, what I'm going to do on this sign is vinyl. So I am measuring how wide and how tall it can be, and then I go and I design this on my Cricut design space. And first I want to give a little bit of distress. So I'm doing this while my Cricut cuts out the design and just distressing it with my ivory chalk paint, a chunky brush, and a baby wipe until I get kind of a coastal vibe for my sign. And I will try to look, I think I still have this up on my Cricut, what fonts I did use for my vinyl. And what I used white vinyl. I used the Dollar Tree vinyl actually to make this sign, to make it all Dollar Tree. Now, what I found on this white, well, all of the vinyl from the Dollar Tree, is that the back rips. It sticks to the mats if you use a sticky mat. Now, I had to use my long Cricut mat, and so it was the medium grip, and it did kind of stick and rip on the back, but no problems with the vinyl. But you can see there on my bright pad where it did rip the bottom off, and I was going to try to save my excess vinyl here, but I really couldn't see at all where one began and one end. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have a ton of this stuff. This vinyl from the Dollar Tree, I think I'll be okay wasting a tiny bit of vinyl. So what I did was I did farm in a script, fresh more in a block letter, and then pumpkins going up and down my sign. Now I'm using some of this paper transfer paper. I love this stuff. I get it on Amazon. We'll definitely post a link. Look how easily that Dollar Tree vinyl comes off on it. So easy to work with. And I didn't even have to weed this, you'll notice, because all of it kind of self-weeded. There was no, these fonts I picked, there was no like inside of the letters that I had to weed out. So perfect. So I'm just trying to line up my pumpkins to try to center that. Push that down, scrape it with my little Cricut scraper, and it's time to take off my transfer paper. I find that if you fold it flat like this and kind of go from the side, it's going to come off way easier and all of your vinyl will stay down. Now here is the top of the sign, the Farm Fresh, and I'm just kind of lining that up, scraping it on, and folding the paper right off. And we have Farm Fresh pumpkins. Whenever I actually use vinyl on signs, I like to use a little sanding block to push that down, kind of make that one with my piece. But I'm always afraid that it could lift off. So how I'm going to solve that is going over it with just some Mod Podge and sealing down all my vinyl letters so I don't have to worry about any of those letters falling off my sign. And I definitely want to use the matte because I don't want my piece to be shiny. So once I have that on, you can definitely dry the Mod Podge with that as well. I decided I wanted a pop of orange, so I decided to do a pumpkin behind my little pumpkin cutout. Doesn't have to be a pumpkin, it could be anything because it's already cut out, but that's what I had, so that's what I used, and I painted that with just that pumpkin chalk paint by Waverly, and I'm going to put that behind my little pumpkin cutout. Just to give a pop of color. I think that looks better than my brown wall that's going to be behind my sign. And to fit with the project, I'm going to give it a light distress with that ivory chalk paint and a chunky brush. I'm just going to put it behind it just like that. So easy peasy. I'm just going to attach that with a little bit of hot glue and glue that onto the back of my sign. And it could have been a circle. It could have been a square. It really didn't need to be a pumpkin, but I had one. Okay, I thought that the piece wasn't quite distressed enough, so I'm going over it again now that I have the vinyl on there and distressing it more with the ivory and my chunky brush and my baby wipe until I get it exactly the way that I like it. And I decided I want my letters to be a little distressed as well, so I'm using a chunky brush in that agave, that blue, and kind of distressing my vinyl as well. Why not? It'll make it look a little bit more hand-painted and more part of the piece. Now, on these kind of signs, I usually make a stencil and hand paint it, but I was going for easy for this project, and I think it worked out just well. Using my existing hanger, I noticed with that little wood pumpkin on the back, though it didn't hang flat against my wall, so I'm actually going to end up putting it on there backwards and just tying off the front instead of using the little plastic clips that were on there, and problem solved. And here is the final result. I love the coastal beachy blue with the distressed look and super cute, very inexpensive sign. Okay, let's switch it up a little bit and do some acorns. Acorns really remind me of fall and I think they're so pretty, and I'm going to do a little coastal version of an acorn fall sign. Okay, here is the next acorn project. I want to make an acorn on a square wood sign. Now, it doesn't matter what sign. I'm using a fall sign. I just wanted a square sign for this project. So I just pulled the rope off of the top and the staples out and kind of tried to sand my damage. Now, this side is a Dollar Tree sign, so of course it's got glitter on it. And I want it to look finished, so I'm just going to use some of this wood grain contact paper. I love using this on the back of my Dollar Tree signs to give me a more finished product. I just cut it out a little too big for my sign, press it on there, and then just use a sanding block from the Dollar Tree and go around, and that gives me a perfect cut. And I can rip off the excess contact paper. Easy peasy way to finish the back of your Dollar Tree signs. Now this was really warped, and so I work with it to try to flatten it out. That's one thing I don't like about Dollar Tree signs is the fact that they're so thin, but I do make it work. Now I am going to paint the sign in ivory. This is Ivory Chalk Paint by Waverly, and that bottle is empty, and I'm using every last bit of it. I tell you, I need to go get more. And what I want to do here is kind of do like a white shiplap appearance, kind of like that contact paper, but maybe with a little bit more of a coastal feel. So I am using just a foam brush, and I'm kind of working in one direction and trying to get a good coverage of that ivory on that sign. It's kind of, the back of those signs is kind of like an MDF. It's kind of like a cardboard wood. And I put a little spackle in there because you could kind of see the little holes left over from the staples. And I'm going over with another coat of that ivory chalk paint. And it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to go for a weathered look, but I want it to be fairly white. And I'm speeding that up there with my heat gun. And then I am going to use my ruler and just an ink pen, and I am just going to draw on lines where I think the different boards would be. I'm not even measuring them. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, kind of like shiplap, kind of like boards or decking. And I am then going to go in, instead of distressing it with Antique Wax by Waverly, I'm just going to go in and distress it with agave. I kind of want it to have a vibe with a little bit of a white with like a little bit of a blue touch. And so I go over all the edges of all where my boards would be. So that includes the lines that I put on there as well. Then I follow that up with a baby wipe to wipe off any excess paint and distress my little boards. Now, you can tell I keep trying to like straighten it out. I am going to attach another wood piece to the sign, which does make it way flatter and way more stable. Now, I was thinking that it was a little too blue, so I am going back and distressing with ivory as well, with the chunky brush from the Dollar Tree. And I don't know what it is. I usually have really good luck with these brushes, but I must have got like some bad batches because they are like losing all of their little strings in my paint, and it's kind of annoying. Okay, before I get any further, I'm going to go ahead and just use some twine and some hot glue and just make a simple hanger for the back of our sign. To hang the final product just before I have anything else on here. And now we're going to start working on our acorn. Now this is just a plain wood acorn hanging from the Dollar Tree, and this is some more of that adhesive wallpaper from the Dollar Tree. Isn't it beautiful? It's so peachy and coastal. I love it. And I thought it'd be fun just to cover the acorn part of my acorn. So I'm just going to draw that on there. Now, I don't really want this line to be like a straight line because I want it to look more 3D. So I'm just going to kind of try to freehand like kind of a little bit of an arch of a line coming out of there to give it a little bit more dimension and not just a straight line. And then I'm just going to go in here with my scissors and cut out that adhesive wallpaper to the size of our little acorn. Now, I thought that this would add a nice touch of blue. It's definitely going to give me a coastal feel. And it's fun. You can put anything on these signs. So I have it cut just about perfect. And so all I'm going to do is peel off the back of that wallpaper and stick that to our wooden sign. Easy peasy. It's so pretty. I think I'm going to have to get lots of this wallpaper for sure. And I'm just kind of smoothing the edges, making sure that I have it cut perfectly to size and that there's nothing hanging off on the sides. Now for the top of the acorn, I thought I would cover it in some of this burlap. This is just a roll of burlap that I picked up at Walmart. And there's kind of some odd angles here. So I was trying to like just draw that on like a pattern, but the ink pen and the burlap really couldn't work very well. And I could not find a marker to save my life there on my workbench. So I keep trying. And then I'm like, you know what? I'll just kind of eyeball it. So I just kind of cut up there in the middle. And I am just going to try to cut that arch kind of by looking at it with my fabric scissors, like half of it at a time. like that. And that was the part that I was worried about. The rest of it should be easy to trim around the edge of my acorn. So I'm just gonna glue that down with just a little bit of hot glue. I wasn't sure if I was going to do burlap on the stem as well, but I do end up deciding to do that because I think it is just an easy way to decorate that. So I use a little spackle to fill in that little hole on the stem before I glue down the burlap to that as well. Now all I have to do is go in with some really sharp scissors and cut around my acorn. And that's going to be a really nice texture for the top of my acorn. And I think it really gives a nice coastal feel to my project. So just trimming that up. And so easy. Look how easy that was to decorate this large acorn from the Dollar Tree. And I didn't even have to use any paint for it. And I'm just trimming it and making sure that I think it looks perfect. And I tried not to use too much hot glue when I was gluing that down because I didn't want the glue to come out and make a mess all over my burlap. Now I was kind of trying it on and I was like, it doesn't match fantastic like the shades of blue. So what I'm going to do is go in with just a little bit more ivory and whiten it up a little more. I think I distressed it with a blue a little bit more than I intended. So I'm just kind of going over the boards, kind of trying to still leave like the lines between the two boards. And brightening that up just a touch. Then I decided I wanted something with that like mint green color that is on that wallpaper. And so I'm just going to use a paint pen in this mint green color. I have like a pack of paint pens I got on Amazon. I love them. I'll post a link below. They have so many colors and it comes in handy for projects like this when you just need a quick paint pen. And I just drew those lines straight down and it made the pieces go together a little bit more. Now I am trying to figure out which way I want my acorn to go. I decide which way and then I just use a bunch of hot glue on the back of our acorn. And now gluing this big wood sign to the other wood sign and flattening that out definitely flattened out the bowing that I was getting on that thin square sign. And I'm just making sure that's really secure. And trimming up the burlap that is a little bit frayed on the sides. Now this is kind of a work in process. I was like trying to figure out, I wanted to decorate something more. Well, I picked up some of these little tier tray starter kits at Target Dollar Spot the other day. They have all these great things in there. I also got an apple one too that I think is going to be great for my apple tier tray. And it's just kind of like a starter pack. And it has this little sign in it that says, I love fall most of all. And it's like the perfect color of wood for this project. It's coastal. The only thing I was confused about is that it had a hanger on the top and I already have a hanger on my sign. And I thought that was a little redundant. And so what I'm going to do is just take that off. But now I have the two open holes. So to disguise that, I'm just going to use some jute twine and string that through and just tie a simple bow on the top. And that's going to serve the purpose of hiding those little holes in that sign. And it gives me a little decorative bow for the top of my sign. Now, I played around. I couldn't decide exactly where I wanted it, but I actually do end up going with the middle of the sign is where I want to put it. So I'm just kind of measuring to make sure that I'm really kind of in the middle. And I'm just going to attach that to our acorn with some hot glue. And it's a small sign, but I think it provides a nice little touch to the sign. And then I wanted to decorate some of the dead areas of the sign as well. So I dug out some seashells to give another little coastal touch to this fall sign. And I'm just kind of playing around with them and deciding which ones that I think look best. And then I'm just going to attach those to the sign with a little bit of hot glue. And carefully, so I don't burn myself, just doing some around the edges, a little bit at the bottom. Adding more if it's not like sticking right away. And they're pretty light, so they're pretty easy to hot glue down. I'm even putting a little fancy shell on there too. And I end up using 2 shells on the top and I think 3 shells here on the bottom, just to kind of fill in some of that space and add another little fun coastal touch to our little acorn fall sign. And I am just hot gluing down that last one, but first it had a little shell trapped inside, so I saved that, and then I'm hot gluing that one down as well. Okay, now I was kind of thinking that it looked a little plain with that Dollar Tree sign, so I wanted something to frame it out with. So I'm going to use some rope from the Dollar Tree, which is going to add another coastal touch, and this is the really thick one. Before I was using the kind of medium one, this is the really thick one. And I really like it. I'm just hot gluing that to the edges of my sign, and it's bigger than my board, so it does kind of provide a frame for our project, and it totally changes the whole vibe of it. I really love how this part turned out. And I am having to use hot glue pretty much on every surface here to make sure that that stays tight and secure. I'm just going to kind of get my hanger out of the way. I can still use that. I just want to keep gluing that rope to the top of the frame and just go by the hangers there. And I'm kind of doing half of a side at a time because I don't want the hot glue to dry before I get the rope placed down there, and just kind of lining that up and pressing that down until the hot glue is dry. And rope can really add a lot to a project like this, and I like to incorporate it as much as I can in these coastal projects because I really think it gives a coastal flair. And I'm going to go around all 4 sides here and just wrapping it around, and then at the end I will cut it. The fibers kind of come apart a little bit when you cut the rope, but when you use hot glue, you can kind of glue those back together and give it a finished edge here at the end. So I'm doing that last half, and then I'll go in with hot glue and glue the ends together there. Just trimming them up first a little bit. And that's what I'm talking about, how it comes apart, and just kind of squeezing those together with the little tips of my hot glue finger protectors. And we have a finished project. I really love how this turned out. It's so coastal and it's fall, both in this little sign. And I have this hanging on my entryway. That is what I'm making these little acorn projects for, is to decorate my little coat rack I have inside my front door. And I think that these projects are going to work really well and kind of go with the rest of my coastal decor that I like to keep up. I love how this turned out. I think it's so beachy, and I love that blue removable wallpaper from Dollar Tree. It made the perfect beachy acorn. Okay, coming up next is going to be a little blue truck sign, perfect for fall with a truck bed full of pumpkins. So let's get started. So this truck is already blue, Julie. What are you going to do? So I found one of these square signs in their fall section at Dollar Tree, and the paper was loose. Now, normally I would just do the back, but since it was loose, I pulled it off. Because the hanger was stapled on the back, and that way I won't have to finish the back, I thought I could just do this side. So I used some sandpaper to try to get off any excess paper that was still on there and try to clean that up a little bit. I don't know if I would do it this way again because I do use the ivory chalk paint by Waverly here and go all over. I want this to look like a beachy white. What I found is painting that, it was kind of a soft texture underneath the paper, and it did wrinkle in a few spots where I did paint it, but I knew that I was going to be covering it up with that little blue truck, so I didn't think it'd be a big deal, so I kind of went with it. And of course, you know your girl's got a distress, and that's just Antique Wax by Waverly, a chunky brush from the Dollar Tree, and a little distressing all over. Okay, now I'm just taking off that little metal leaf that was on there, and I'm gonna do a little blue truck as well. I just wanted the structure of that little blue truck, but it is like super fuzzy around the edges, and so I do have to use a sanding block from the Dollar Tree to clean that up, and a little spackle to fill the little holes from the hanger. And I want to use this agave color again. I love this color, Chalk Paint by Waverly. And I'm going to paint my little blue truck blue. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, Julie, the other side was a perfect little blue truck for fall. Why didn't you just use that? Well, you could if you were short on time or if you didn't want to do this extra step. But, you know, a picture glued to it, I think looks a little bit cheap. I always love a hand-painted sign or a hand-painted piece. I think it just gives it so much extra, classiness. It looks just better. And so after I get it agave, of course, I'm going to distress it a little bit with a chunky brush and some of that ivory chalk paint that I used on the sign. Follow that up with just a baby wipe until I get a light distressing all over my little blue truck. Now, this is my gold paint pen. I got these on Amazon. I have so many colors. They're great. So now I'm going to use that to try to paint my truck on. So I knew it had a windshield right about here that was about this shape. So I'm just going to freehand that on. These paint pens are so easy to work with that even I can paint with them, and I am not a great painter. And so I'm trying to figure out what would happen. So this is kind of like a perspective of the back of the truck. So I'm like, I decided to peek and I'm like, okay, there's the fenders there. There's a bumper here. So I'm just going to kind of sketch those on with my paint pen. And then obviously there's going to be the bed of the truck inside of there. So I'm kind of thinking about where that would be. And so that would kind of be the top of the bed, and then it would kind of go down like that and then out to make it look three-dimensional. And just did a quick sketch with my paint pen. You can always do that with a pencil if you're not sure first. And then I just distressed all of that painting that I just did to make it look just a little bit more consistent. So I'm just distressing that with a chunky brush and some of that blue agave. And then going to go in and distress it with the ivory as well. Now, this little blue truck was kind of a work in progress. He did kind of evolve. I did end up using a couple different techniques. But for the windshield or the back windshield, I'm just using some of that antique wax and a chunky brush just to kind of give me a weathered stain. And I'm doing the same thing with the tires, just because I want them to both be a little bit darker and contrast. And then I'm going over with that gold marker and kind of doing the edges of the windshield and the edges there from the top of the tire. And then I'm using that chalk paint by, that antique wax by Waverly to further distress my truck. And I think this looks cool because it kind of makes it look a little dirty, maybe a little rusty. And distressing it all over. Now I decide that that back windshield was too dark, so I'm trying to distress it a little bit with some of that ivory chalk paint to make it look a little less dark. And I'm kind of trying to determine what I'm trying to get it exactly the way I like it. And so I touched up the back of the bed. I found that I drew it on there a little crooked, and then just distressing it a little bit with some more of that ivory chalk paint. And I want to do pumpkins in the back of my truck. So I thought these little wood pumpkins from the Dollar Tree would be really cute. They're just about the right size. And they're great because they have the writing on there. The only problem is they have these little clothespins on the back and super glued on, just like with the previous project. I really had a hard time. So I did lose a little bit of footage there, but I was able to get them off a few, these 4. but I kind of damaged them, but I think that's okay. And I'm just painting them that pumpkin chalk paint by Waverly. And these on the left, I only got like the one side of the clothespin off and the spring, and I just went ahead and left the other one on there because I figured that I'm going to be stacking the pumpkins in the back of the truck anyway, and it might be okay if it has a little bit more depth. I'll have something to glue it onto. So one coat is all it's going to need of that pumpkin, and then I'm going to use one of my green paint pens. And again, I got these on Amazon. I love the color selection I have. And I just go around the drawing of the leaf that's on there, and then I do the stems that are on there, and it kind of fills it all in with that green. And I love painting these with the black printing of the pumpkin already on there because I don't have to do any detail work. It all shows through the pumpkin colored paint and gives us a bunch of little pumpkins. Then I decide to use that gold color to give them all a little stem. And I was thinking those damaged ones that I damaged trying to get the clothespins off the back, I'll just stack other pumpkins on top of those and you won't know any better. So once I get them all painted the way I like, I'm just going to put them over on the side, and we can start thinking about how we want to put these in the back of the truck. So I'm kind of doing a top row with those ones that I got the clothespins off of, and I'm going to kind of do those around, try to make sure the damaged areas are pointing down, so that way if I layer the pumpkins on there, they'll cover that up. And then I'm kind of doing a second row. Like the row that would have been underneath those is not visible, so you don't really need those. And then I decide that I need these to be a little flatter, so I did use my pliers, and I was able to get the clothespins off a few more of these so that it's not so crazy. And I'm kind of determining how many I want back there. And now I'm just going to use that little clothespin that's on there and hot glue that to my truck bed. That way it gives it a little bit more dimension, and those sit up a little higher than the ones that were in the back. And I had one too many. I didn't really need it. I didn't want to make it uneven, and so that's what I'm going with. Now I'm using one of those jumbo popsicle sticks from Walmart to try to cut out, I guess it's like a giant license plate on the back bumper of that truck. Because it bumps out there, I need to kind of replace that with something. And so I cut it to size, and I'm trying to cut that like arc shape on the side. And trying to cut a circle like freehand is really, really hard. But the popsicles are so thin, they're super easy to cut with scissors. And then I decided to just use the rounded end of one of them to make a template and draw it on there instead of all this freehand, and I will get a much better shaped piece. And that looks way better. And I'm just going to use some ivory chalk paint by Waverly and my foam brush and paint that white. Then I found these great stickers at Dollar Tree, and I am going to use one of them. I really like this one, and so I am just going to stick that on our little license plate, and it had these little side decorative pieces as well, and I think those will look really good on there too. So if you don't have a Cricut, don't worry, you can always customize your pieces with stickers like that from the Dollar Tree. And I thought it was a little too white, so I'm just distressing it with a little bit of that antique wax and a baby wipe to kind of make it go more with the rest of the distress truck. Ready to attach with just a little bit of hot glue. And good to go. Now, I was thinking that it needed a little bit more finishing, so I take that gold paint pen again, and I decide to go around all of the outside edges of my truck just to give it some more detail and make it look a little bit more finished. And I even go around the tires. And basically all the sides. And I was trying to just give it like a finished feel. I do end up changing that color because I think it like blends in a little bit too much. I really want my truck to pop against that white sign that I made for it. And even though this kind of goes with the color scheme I was going with, it's just not really popping off of that sign like I wanted it. It just doesn't feel like super beachy. And so I do end up changing some of the colors here. I just go in with a white paint pen, and I like that better. So I just go around. I do a really imperfect, sloppy outline, and I think that looks really beachy and coastal, and that way I don't have to distress it because it's already kind of distressed itself. And so I go around all of the edges, and then I go around the bumper, the fenders, the lines, and I sketch it out with that white color. And then I'm going to do the back windshield as well. And see how the white makes that truck pop against that background, where before it was kind of all blend in. And I also went around my tires. And I wanted to further distress it, so I am using that Ivory Chalk Paint by Waverly, my chunky brush, and a baby wipe, and I am distressing my cute little pumpkins that I put in the back. And I'm also distressing the windshield, the back windshield a little bit more to try to brighten it up. And then I'm like, I need more beachy. So I do a heavier white distress on the blue parts. And that really finally gave me the light beachy feel that I wanted for my truck. And I was happy with it like that. So I'm just following up with a baby wipe to wipe off any excess paint. And I'm also going to distress that little license plate we made as well to make it all look good and distressed. I am attaching my truck with hot glue and wood glue. And I'm just going to glue that on. Since the back is covered by glue and the sign, you can't see it, so I didn't need to finish it. And there's our sign. Now, I thought the sign needed a little extra touch, so I decided to make a bow. I'm going to use some of this orange burlap from the Dollar Tree and some of these great ribbons that I found there. They had like this orange buffalo check. They have this like burlap one with the little pumpkins. And they even have this one, which is like the little red trucks with pumpkins in the back. So much fun. And I'm just going to do a super simple expo. I'm just using a zip tie. I'm layering all my ribbons I want into X's right on top of each other and closing my zip tie. Definitely the easiest way to make a bow. Not big on making bows, but anybody can do one of these. And so I just trimmed off the excess zip tie, and I'm just arranging it the way I want, trimming it to make sure I have my links I want. I'm not doing a dovetail. I'm just doing a simple like cut across those, and I am ready to hot glue that onto my sign. Just going to hot glue the little zip tie to the sign, and my hot glue gun was not on, so I'm heating that up. And then I thought I would bring back that metal leaf that was on the original project as well. So just a dab of hot glue. Kind of put this over on the side. It's going to cover up that one hanging hole on the top of the truck that you could still see and give a little pizzazz to the sign. And then I'm just going to use a little hot glue to attach that little metal leaf. There we go. And here is the final result. I think this looks so cute hanging in my kitchen. And I love the little wood pumpkins in the back of the truck. Hey, have you joined our private Facebook group yet? It is amazing. All the Crafty Beach Mums are on there sharing their wonderful creativity. You're going to get so many DIY ideas from this Facebook group. I guarantee it. I will post a link below. Also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. My handle is Crafty Beach on YouTube. The next coastal fall DIY might be my favorite. I love it. It is my leaves are falling and the beach is calling sign. So let me show you how I put this sign together. I got this little fall decoration sign kit from the Target dollar spot. I think they're $3. They come with all these cool little wood sticker pieces and a great sign. It's got hangers on the back. And it's made out of a really nice wood. It's pretty sturdy. It's a lot better than what you're going to probably find at the Dollar Tree. And so for $3, with everything that was included, I think that's a pretty good deal. What I'm going to do is paint the back of it and make it a sign. So I'm just using some of this painter's tape from the Dollar Tree, and I am just taping off the inside of the frame so that I don't get it all mucky when I go to paint the back of my sign. And I thought I would do a fun sign that I can sit on my shelf, something that's going to have to do with fall and the beach. And I was thinking I want to do it like in a pretty beach color blue. So this is my favorite color, you know that, the Agave by Chalk Paint by Waverly. But I'm just going to add a little bit, I think that's cool, to it, and just lighten it up just a little bit to make it a little bit more of a lighter color of blue. And I am just going to simply paint the back of the sign. Now this came with like some great like pumpkin and gourds and like a Hello Fall, and I'm actually going to use that Hello Fall wood decal later on in another project. And I'm sure I will use all of those for sure. They're really cute. So I got one coat of that chalk paint on there and just drying that with my heat gun. What I'm going to plan to do is, see that little wood leaf there? That is like one of the wood leaf ornaments from the Dollar Tree. I want to attach that to the sign, and then I want to use like my Cricut to cut a message for the sign. But first, I want to do something with this leaf, so I'm just going to fill the little ornament hole with a little bit of spackle. And if you have a trick for that, I would really appreciate if you comment below. Every single time I do that and paint over it, you can still see it, and then I will spackle over it again and paint it, and you can still see it. Does anybody have a trick on how you can hide those without being able to see it? I know there must be one. Okay, so I painted it ivory, Chalk Paint by Waverly, and then I want to go in with some of this Antique Wax by Waverly and just distress all of those beautiful edges on that leaf, just to give a light distress. And then I'm going to kind of do a little bit all over, but I'm going to wipe most of that off there with my baby wipe, because I want it to be like an ivory color, but I do want it to look nice and distressed. You know me, I like to distress everything. And I love using those little chunky brushes there from the Dollar Tree. They work great for that. And this is what I mean. I'm filling that hole in again and painting over it, and you can still kind of see it. I don't know if there's a way to totally get rid of it. And okay, this is dry, so I'm going to go ahead and take the painter's tape off of our sign, and I'm just going to leave the frame in that natural color. I think it's really pretty. I think it's really beachy. I want all these projects to go on my bookcase I have between my living room and kitchen. I like to use that like really as a seasonal display, and I think this will be perfect for the second shelf. It's not too tall. So my plan is to put the leaf up in the corner like that, but first we're going to use some of that Dollar Tree vinyl and in the color of white, and it's really hard to weed, the white vinyl from the Dollar Tree, but I am using my little bright pad there, and that really helped a lot. I had to dim the lights there so I could see, but if you turn that up all the way, it really helps. I really like my new little toy. And when you have like a cursive font like that, There's a lot of weeding in between all of those letters. And this font is Hello on the Cricut Design Space if you want to recreate it. And it says, the leaves are falling and the beach is calling. I thought that was really fun. And I am just getting those all weeded. And I am just putting my little vinyl scraps into a little vinyl scrap holder. And it's really great because it's got the little slits on the side that will clean off your little Cricut weeder, and I picked that up on Amazon. I will post a link below if you would like one of those. It's got a little suction cup on the bottom, and it's pretty big. It holds quite a bit, and it works really well. I'm always looking for things that's going to make my Cricut and my vinyl easier, and that's one of those things. Okay, I'm going to trim that up a little bit, and I'm going to use some of this paper, transfer paper. I get this on Amazon as well, and I will post a link below for that as well. It is fantastic. Transfer paper is so easy, and I like it way better than the clear kind. I'm just going to kind of line up what's going to fit around that leaf, and then I'm going to use my little Cricut scraper and scrape that vinyl down. And when I pull the paper off, I like to fold it as flat as I can, and it really helps keep everything down. But this Cricut vinyl from the Dollar Tree is actually pretty darn good. And so my plan is to put the leaf on there kind of like that. So I'm just going to attach it with a little bit of hot glue. And I want it to look like, you know, like a leaf that's falling. And I think that looks pretty good, what I'm going for. Then I decide I want to seal those letters. So I'm just using some matte Mod Podge, and I'm just going over the vinyl. I kind of wish I would have done this before I put the leaf on there, but it's matte and the chalk paint is matte, so it's all going to blend in once it gets dry. And I'm just going to speed that up with my heat gun. And this isn't necessary, but it always makes me feel better, makes the sign a little bit more permanent, and then I don't have to worry about that vinyl coming up. And then I decide that I wanted to distress it. Now, I totally should have done this before I put the leaf on there because I kind of had to go all around it. But I'm just using one of those chunky brushes, going all over in one direction, and then using a baby wipe to take off the excess. Around the leaf area was a little challenging because the leaf was totally in my way, but I made it work. And I love to distress this color of blue. I think it's very coastal and very beachy. And I'm just distressing until I get it to a point that I really like it and that it looks like it's really evenly distressed. And I like that. Now, I was thinking that it needed something else. And I couldn't decide what it needed, but first I'm gonna try to make a stand. It's got this frame, but it really won't stand up on its own, so I'm just gonna hot glue one of these giant Jenga blocks to the back. You can use whatever you've got, just something to make it stand up. And then I thought, I think it actually needs like a real leaf on the back. So I'm gonna use one of these blue fall leaves from the Dollar Tree, and just kind of attach it on top of my wood leaf. They're the same kind of leaf, and it's going to give it like more of a 3D vibe, and it's going to give some texture to the sign. And it was exactly what my sign was missing. So I just used a little bit of hot glue just to put that down. And then I'm just going to use a little raffia bow that I took off of another project from the Dollar Tree and just glue that onto the top of the leaf. And that looks like way more finished, and I love how that project turned out. What do you think?
Here is the final result. I did post this on Instagram, and I had lots of people wanting to buy it from me, and I'm like, well, no, but I'll show you how to make your own. I think it turned out so cute. Our next coastal fall sign DIY today is going to be my Fall in Love sign, using supplies from the Dollar Tree. Let's get started.
Okay, I wanted to make a different leaf sign, and I am using just a Dollar Tree sign from the summer. Doesn't matter what it is, but it does have a little bump out on the front. So I'm just using my little spatula from the Dollar Tree to try to get that off. just because I want to cover that. I want to cover my back. And I'm going to use that wood leaf sign that I got at the Dollar Tree. And this one's a little different. It's not the whole leaf, and it's not that intricate pattern. It's the shape of a leaf, and it's got like the palette boards like on a backing. So I thought that would be a nice contrast. And you know my trick for the back of the signs, I like to cover it with the wood contact paper just to make it look more finished and more professional. So I just cut it out bigger than the back of my sign, and then I use one of those sanding blocks from the Dollar Tree again to cut that off and give us a really clean cut, and we will be ready to work on the sign. Now this sign is one of the cheaper Dollar Tree signs, so it's a little thin and it's a little bowed, so I do work with it a little bit. I find that if you do put heat on it, it does kind of help with the bowing on those signs. And I'm kind of deciding what I want to do with this. I know I want to put a leaf on there. And now this one is already brown. So I am going to go ahead and kind of do the same thing I did with the first one to try to make it look a little bit more wood-like. And so I'm using that Antique Wax by Waverly and my chunky brush from the Dollar Tree and giving it a sloppy coat up and down. And it dried pretty fast on the back of that sign. And I'm just trying to wipe off the excess antique wax with just a paper towel. And then I decide to go in and with some ivory chalk paint by Waverly and a chunky brush, distress it a lot, the same direction up and down. And then I'm just going in with a baby wipe to kind of blend that together. It kind of looks like wood. And so I'm going in again with the Antique Wax by Waverly and a chunky brush and trying to get some more dark streaks in there to kind of mix it up a little bit. Now this gave me a different color of wood than the original one where I did it over ivory. It gave me that light wood. This gave me more of a medium to darker tone wood, but it does still kind of look like wood. And I'm going in there with a little bit more antique wax to try to add a little bit more variations in the color and to try to make it look a little bit more like wood. And then I'm just drying that with my heat gun so we can start working with the front of this sign. And I'm going to have this sign go up and down like it was originally, so the holes on the top will work for the hanger. Now this leaf has a hanger on it as well, so I don't need that. So I just took it off and I'm just filling in the holes of this leaf with some of that spackle from the Dollar Tree so that I can paint it. Now this one I decided to just paint ivory. I thought paint would be a good technique on this one, especially since it's got the different slats where you can see in between. You could cover it with, you know, Mod Podge or that technique we learned with paper, but you'd probably want to cut in between the seams there. And I kind of wanted to bring that ivory color into this project. And I'm kind of going in and trying to do the boards that were exposed too with just a tiny brush. And then just drying that chalk paint with my heat gun. And you know I have to distress it. So I'm using some of that Antiques by Waverly and my chunky brush. And I'm going over, focusing a lot on the edges and then a little in the middle. And then I'm just going to go in with my baby wipe and wipe off the excess. Now it was a little darker than I would like, so I did add a little bit more ivory back in there just to brighten the project up a bit. Just drying that chalk paint. And weathering it and getting it just how I like it. If you find you go too far in one direction, you can definitely go back with the other color and fix it. So I am just measuring. There should be enough room on this sign for a word. And so I cut another stencil out on my Cricut. I will post a link below with the fonts that I used on Cricut Design Space to make these stencils. And this one is going to say fall in love. I thought that would be pretty cool for fall. Have a falling leaf on it. And so I am just weeding out that pattern for my stencil with my weeder, and there we go. It's ready to go. I'm going to use some of my paper transfer paper. I love this stuff. I get it on Amazon, and I am peeling off the back And we're ready to attach the stencil. I decide to do it on the top of the sign. And I'm just trying to get it somewhat centered. And scraping that on with my Cricut scraper and then just pulling off my transfer paper is going to leave us with a really awesome stencil. If you don't have a Cricut, you could always use a paint pen and try to hand paint this on. Other ideas is you could use the letters, stickers, or the rub-ons from the Dollar Tree. And I'm using some ivory chalk paint by Waverly and my little stencil brush from the Dollar Tree, and just daubing all over my stencil. And of course I used that painter's tape around my stencil to make sure that I didn't mess up the rest of my sign. And then I am just going to dry that paint. And again, I love hand-painted signs. I think they're so much fun. And if I would have known that I could have made such cool stencils with my Cricut, I would have got one years ago, for real. I got mine for Christmas this past year, and oh, I love it. It's so much fun. Okay, just peeling off the stencil and using my weeder to get out the inside pieces that are still on there. And I think it looks pretty good. So I want to make it say fall in love and then have this leaf falling on the front of it. Trying to decide which way I wanted it to go, and I decide I like it that way the best. And I'm going to use some wood glue on those slats on the back and a little bit of hot glue too to speed things up. And it is ready to attach to our sign. I'm trying to remember how I wanted it on there. And just gluing that on. Now, the holes on the top are where they need to be, so I'm going to use just the same hanger that came with it. I'm just poking a hole through my vinyl that I put on the back with my little weeder, and just feeding that same hanger through. Easy peasy. Now, I decided it needed a little bit of detail. I thought about a ribbon, but then I thought maybe some of these blue leaves would look really cute. So that's all I'm going to do is two of them come attached together, and I'm going to put it around the rope on the sign. And I'm kind of trying to decide what the best way to attach it is. And I end up just using a little bit of hot glue to glue that on. And it gives us a little bit more detail to the sign, brings in that blue color, and has some more leaves for fall. I thought about doing a third one, but then decided that it didn't really need it. It looked fine with just two. And I'm hot gluing that side down too, just to make sure that they don't go anywhere and that it's laying just how I want it. Here is how it looks hanging in my house. I love the simplicity and the colors of this sign. It's so cute. And I just love those blue leaves from the Dollar Tree. And the great news is they have them again this year. Okay, this next fall sign is going to be like a shelf sitter sign. And we're going to do like a blue beach pumpkin. Are you ready? Up next, I found this great a metal pumpkin at the Dollar Tree. It says gather, and I love the blue and white plaid. I thought that was very beachy. Just gonna pop off the little raffia bow and take off the chain that was on the top. And I am gonna make this into a sign. So I'm gonna use, it's a Halloween sign, but it totally doesn't have to be, and some leftover burlap that I cut off the back of one of these bags from the Dollar Tree. And I have some scraps. And so I'm going to have to cut 2 pieces of the burlap to cover the sign, but that's fine. I don't think you'll be able to tell. And I like to use all of my craft materials for sure. So I'm kind of measuring. Once you get it lined up, you can kind of go with the line of the burlap to make sure that you're cutting a straight line. And I like to pull off the first piece to give it a slightly frayed appearance. And I'm not even going to bother painting this sign because you're not going to be able to see that writing through it, because I'm going to put that pumpkin on top of it and make a shelf sitter sign. And it's also got like the orange outline around the edges, which is slightly visible, but I kind of like it. I think it kind of goes with the Halloween fall vibe. So I'm measuring that second piece of scrap, and I'm always looking for ways to get material and wood from the Dollar Tree. So this was a fun way to get some burlap from the Dollar Tree in a bigger size. So my plan is just to attach that like that, and then I think that pumpkin will cover all of the design on there. So it totally doesn't matter what kind of sign you put it on, but I liked this size because the pumpkin will slightly hang off the edges, and I kind of like that effect. So I'm just going to attach the burlap to the sign with just a little bit of hot glue. Nothing fancy, just try not to burn yourself. And I'm going to slightly overlap the second one so that you won't see any of the sign underneath of it. And just attach that with hot glue as well. And I really like using burlap on signs. I think it gives it really fun texture, and I think it looks really coastal. And I like how that turned out. And I'm just trimming it to make sure that it is even. And trying to make sure that it's stuck down, and I'm just going to clean up any hot glue mess that came out of the top there. And that is my plan. Now, I don't really want it to say gather. I wanted to say something else. And so I got some of these stickers from the Dollar Tree, and I thought I could make it say whatever I want. But first, I'm going to have to paint over that where it says gather. So I'm just going to use some ivory chalk paint by Waverly and just paint that middle section because I really like the plaid on the side, and I do want to keep that. But I do want to change what it says. So it's really kind of hard to tape off a curved area like that, so I didn't really bother. I'm just trying to be careful, and then when I do mess up and paint too far over, I'm just trying to clean that up with a baby wipe. And it turned out pretty good. So I'm trying to make the edges look clean, and then I'm just trying to get as much as that gather covered up with the ivory. And this chalk paint is great because it'll stick to anything, even metal like this. And this kind of reminds me of like one of the metal like steak pumpkins, but it's a little bit smaller. And I'm going over with another coat because you could still kind of read the word gather through there. And I want to replace that word, so I want it to be a blank slate. And again, just trying to clean up as I go and try to keep that pretty uniform. And once I have that middle part of the pumpkin all white or ivory, I'm going to put a word on there with my little stickers. And they are outlined in blue, but they also have like some red foil design on those letters. And I don't really like that, so I will end up painting those as well. But I really like the letters. They're exactly the right size that I needed for this project. And I'm going to spell out the word beach, of course. And so I'm trying to find the middle, and I'm not really putting the stickers down. I'm just kind of sitting them there because I need to figure out if they're going to fit. And that direction was a little tight, so I'm kind of seeing if I have more room to move down a little bit, and I do. So then I'm just going to move them down slightly, and then I can stick those down. And I'm just using the sticker. I'm not using any glue or anything like that. I think they're going to stay on there. And perfect fit, beach. Then I'm like, I don't really like that red foil on there, so I'm just going to go in there and start distressing with some of that ivory chalk paint and try to cover up the red design that was on the letters. And I kind of want it to look like, you know, that the word was molded into the sign, or that it was like wood and that it's carved. And so that's what I was kind of going for. So I'm just distressing all over with the ivory. And I'm just kind of getting that like I want it. I kind of want it to look raised, but I want you to be able to see it a little bit. So I'm going to go in and distress the whole piece with a little bit of that Antique Wax by Waverly and wipe off the excess with a baby wipe. You really can't tell too much that I did that in the final project though. I think it wipes off the metal really easily. It sticks to the chalk paint a little bit better. But maybe you can see a little bit of distress around the edges. And then it was too dark, I thought, in the middle. So anytime you're distressing, if you go back in with your original color, and that was the ivory, you can fix any mistakes. So I'm trying to decide if I really want you to be able to read beach, or if I kind of just want it to look like an embossed effect. And I can't decide. Then I decide, oh yeah, I totally want it more blue. So I'm going to go in and distress the letters and kind of a little bit all over with that agave color, just to bring it out a little bit more. And going back in with the ivory on the distress on that part of the pumpkin. Just fool with it until you get it like you like it. And then my plan is to attach it to that little sign. I wanted to do something with the stem, so the easiest way to take care of a little stem like this is just to wrap it with some of this jute twine from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to tie it around the circle that was on the top and just wrap it around until it is all covered. Easy peasy. Cut off the end and just hot glue that into the back. Now, since it is metal and it's arched, it doesn't really come into contact with my sign. So I'm using some of those little mini Jenga sticks from the Dollar Tree and gluing 2 of those on the back, and then putting hot glue on that and hot glue on both of the sides and gluing that to my little burlap sign. And I want to make sure that it can sit up so that the bottom is flush, but I kind of like that the sides hang off. Now be careful when you're hot gluing these metal because it gets really hot. So I was trying to decide, I thought it needed maybe something else. And so I decided to reattach that raffia bow that was on there before, and perfect size. And just attach that with a little bit of hot glue. Then I decided that I couldn't really read the letters enough. I wanted them to be a little bit more blue. So I'm just using a small brush to go in and do a really sloppy, like weathered little paint job on those letters. And I'm glad I did. It looks way better like this. And sometimes these projects just evolve and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not totally happy with that. And that was the final touch that I thought that it needed. Super cute and easy. And this is how the little beach pumpkin looks on my shelf. I think it looks so cute and beachy. I love the colors on this one. Okay, let's do another acorn sign. This is going to be my welcome fall acorn sign with a coastal flair. Love the colors on this one. Okay, this is a Dollar Tree acorn, and this is going to be a thrift flip sign. I got this at the Goodwill store for 99 cents. It's a great wood sign, very sturdy, and it came in this beautiful color that was kind of my inspiration. I'm like, I kind of wanted my sign to be that color. It's like a mint green, light blue. And so I'm going to use one of these little rollers and pans from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to try to replicate that color, even though I don't really have it. I'm going to see what I can do. I'm going to use turquoise, I'm going to use light blue, and I'm going to do a touch of that light green, and I get pretty close. And all I'm going to do is use my roller and go in there and paint over. But first, it had a little bit of glitter on there, so I am just sanding that off, and I go in with my roller, and easy peasy. I'm going to go around and do all the sides. The sides were polka dots. and getting tons of paint on myself in the process, but that's okay. And that was like the simplest thrift flip ever, because that's going to be the background for this little acorn sign that we're going to do. And it's really sturdy, so I don't have to weigh it down or anything. It's going to stand up just fine on the top of my little coat rack. And I love reusing signs from the thrift store. You can often find higher quality things like this than you can from the Dollar Tree for the same price. So I did do another coat of that paint on there to make sure that you couldn't really read the writing. You kind of could a little bit in the middle, but there's going to be an acorn on there, so you're not going to be able to see it. Now, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with this acorn. And I kind of decided, since it were slats, I kind of wanted to alternate like ivory and like a wood stain. And so I'm going in and painting that center one ivory. I'm still working on that bottle. I swear, there was a little bit left. And then I'm going to do both of the outsides of the acorn. And I'm not really taping it off. I'm just trying to be careful, because I want to stain those other two pieces. And I don't want to get any paint on those, because then it would interfere with the staining. So I'm just drying those with my heat gun. And I'm going to stain those other two little slats with just some Antique Wax by Waverly. So I'm going to tape off my painted parts, because that Antique Wax can be a little messy when you're going in, and I don't really want to get it all over the place. I also want to do the little slats behind that are poking through that hold the piece together. So I go in with a foam brush and just stain those. And then I kind of push in those little cracks to get those little boards in the back stain that color as well. And then I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. And then I'm just going to follow that up with a paper towel and wipe off the excess Antique Wax. Okay, it's time to take off the painter's tape and reveal our stripes. Now, I don't want it to be like really bold like that. I want it to look a little bit more coastal and beachy. So to do that, I go in with the chunky brush and the Antique Wax, and I distress the ivory parts by going around the edges, really focusing on those, and a little bit in the middle as well. And then following that up with a baby wipe to wipe off any excess, and it gives me a nice weathered ivory shade. Then I thought the stain parts was a little too dark too, and so I go in and do the same thing. I distress those with the opposite, which is the ivory. And I just use my foam brush and then a baby wipe and distress those, and you can see how that gives it like a whole different vibe. It's not like super striped, it's kind of more like weathered. Now, I did not fill in these holes on the top, so I'm going to kind of do the same thing that I did on that other project by using those just to have a little place to do a little twine bow. And that's going to give me a little finished bow for the top and take care of those holes on the top of the acorn as well. I was trying to decide if I wanted it crooked. I had it crooked on my previous sign, and so I decided to do this one straight. And I wanted to distress the bottom sign a little bit more, so I'm just using some ivory and that chunky brush and distressing it a little bit all over, going on the edges, wiping off any excess with a baby wipe, and it lightened it up just a little bit. Then I was trying to decide if I wanted to use one of these little wooden signs from the Dollar Tree. You get a whole bunch in a package, and they have all kinds of great ones for fall. I just used hot glue on those two beams on the back that were holding the pieces together on the acorn to glue those to the back of the sign. Then I really like the natural color of this Welcome Fall sign, but I decided to distress it with a little bit of ivory just around the edges, just to bring it out just a tiny bit, but I really like the natural wood feel. Then I was trying to decide, I wanted to add something coastal. I thought maybe a shell might be fun on this sign, and I really like this one. The colors are like perfect with my sign. It's a little bit broken, but I think that can work. And then I'm kind of deciding if I want it like that or if I want it the other way. I end up using the shell on the bottom. It was broken, so I just used some heavy-duty scissors to try to trim off the other side to kind of make it even. And I decide I want Welcome Fall at the top, and I just do a little bead of hot glue on that straight line part and glue that to our little acorn. And then I am going to glue down this big shell here on the bottom. It's a really pretty shell. It's a little like neutral, and you can't really see the design too much. So I go in with my chunky brush and a little ivory and bring out a little bit of that texture to make it a little bit more obvious. Then I decided I wanted a couple leaves at the top. I thought maybe some maple leaves would be fun because it's an acorn. So I was just kind of playing around. I kind of like the idea of doing like the green color, but I couldn't really decide. I was trying to decide how I liked them on there. So I'm gluing down the green one. And I couldn't really get two of the green ones on there in a way that I liked. And so I decided to look to see what other colors, and they have like this iridescent orange. And that's a nice little contrast against my light blue turquoise sign. So I'm going to use that one and glue that to the top of the acorn as well, just for a little fun pop of color. And we have our little Welcome Fall acorn sign. I didn't like my bow, and so I untied it and retied it. And now the project is perfect.
This is how the acorn sign looks in my house. It's so beachy. I love the little seashell on there as well. So pretty. Okay, our final coastal fall sign DIY today is going to be a farm fresh pumpkin sign for my entryway, or maybe you could even say fresh farm.
Yes. So I found this great sign at my local Goodwill. So this is a thrift flip. I got it for $2.99. It's a really heavy-duty wood sign with 3 slats. I love it, and it's a really nice size. So I thought it would make a perfect pumpkin patch sign, like one that you would see if somebody was selling pumpkins from a farm. So I found the best way to cover white writing on a sign is to use white. And I want a couple of the boards to be white anyway, so that will work. It's just going to require a couple coats. I'm using ivory chalk paint by Waverly that I get at Walmart. And you can see about what coverage one coat of the ivory chalk paint did. You can still see through there because there was quite a bit of contrast with the dark gray and the white writing. So I'm just going in there with another coat of that ivory chalk paint, and I'm just going to touch it up until you can't see the writing anymore. I just used a popsicle stick there to kind of get the little paint drippies that were falling down between the two boards because I didn't want that to dry like that. And I'm just using my heat gun to speed up the drying process. Now, my plan for this is I want it to look kind of coastal, kind of distressed, and I want to add some blue in there. So I think I'm going to make that middle board blue. I love the light blue color for fall. I think it looks really good with orange. I like the contrast. So once I got good coverage of ivory, I'm just going in with some of this painter's tape from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to mark off my boards that I want to leave white so that I can paint that middle board blue. So the color that I use is agave and chalk paint by Waverly, and it is my favorite color. It looks really good with my like coastal decor in my house. I love this color. I think it's so pretty. And since I have such a good coverage of white underneath, it doesn't take very much of this to get an even coat of the blue. Now, I'm going to use my Cricut for this, and I am going to make stencils. I love hand-painted signs, especially on the larger signs. I think they look so beautiful and handmade, and so that is what we're going to go for on this pumpkin patch sign. I think I'm going to hang this in my entryway when you first come in. I think it would be a really fun dose of fall. But right now I still have my Olympic decorations up from my previous video, so the Olympics are still going strong, so I'll have to wait before I hang it. Now I've got the middle board blue, and I want to distress it. I love distressing things with this Antique Wax by Waverly. And what I do is just kind of go on the edges a little bit and try to keep it all going the same direction. Then I just follow it up with a baby wipe if I get too much on there, and to kind of spread it out, give that board like a weathered look. I love distressing things. I think it looks so nice, and I think it looks very like coastal, like farmhouse. And so I am just going in and distressing all of my boards. I decided to go in and even distress the middle one, the blue one too. Give it that little distressed look and follow that up with just a baby wipe to wipe off the excess. I think it gives the projects such a weathered look. I love it. And I'm just fixing a spot there that I kind of messed up when I was wiping a little too hard, I think, with my baby wipe. And since that middle board is blue, I also want to distress it with the white. I think that looks really good. Bringing in the other color of the board there, and give it a light distress with that, and follow that with a baby wipe as well. And once I get it good and how I like it, I am going to measure those boards so I know exactly how big to cut my stencils. So I got this stencil paper on Amazon. I will post a link. This is the first time that I've used this roll. I really liked it. I like to use stencil paper, well, the stencil vinyl when I make stencils for hand-painted signs, because I find that they don't stick to the paint that's already there, so they don't damage it. And I find it really easy to work with. So I am just weeding out the words and the arrows that I want it to say. I had to use my long 2-foot mat with this because this is such a big sign. But I still couldn't get everything on here. So this is 2 of the rows. Pumpkins, fresh farm. It is supposed to say farm fresh. More on that later. And so this is for my 3rd board. It's You Pick Open Daily. And I thought that was cute for things that I can paint on that sign. So I kind of got them all trimmed up where they'll fit on each individual board. And I really love this paper, transfer paper. I get this on Amazon as well too. I have the 6-inch roll and the 12-inch roll, and I love it. It works really well. It doesn't cause paint damage like the plasticky transfer tape. So once I get it on there, I'm just going to use that to attach my stencil to my board. Once I get it on there just the way I like it, I just use my little Cricut scraper to make sure that it's down and pull off the tape. And I'm also going to use some of this painter's tape from the Dollar Tree to paint off any places that aren't covered. When I go over with the stencil brush, sometimes I get a little crazy and I can mess up other areas of the sign. And the top board is white and the bottom board is white. So I'm going to use the same color to paint both of those. So I'm going to go ahead and put the You Pick Open Daily stencil on the bottom and kind of do both of those at the same time. Now I'm using my little Cricut scraper to make sure that it's good and down because I don't want any bleeding underneath the stencil. And again, I'm just using my painter's tape to tape that off so I don't make a big mess. Now, I'm going to use that Antique Wax by Waverly. I didn't know if this would really work. I really wanted it to look like it was like a wood sign underneath the painting. And so I couldn't really stain the wood on the sign because it was a painted sign. So this is kind of a reverse wood effect. And I'm just using my little stencil foam brush from the Dollar Tree. Once I get it on there, I just drag it from side to side to give me brush strokes. And it gives that wood grain effect. But I'm having to be very careful because I don't want to make that stain go underneath the stencils. So just a swipe, swipe, swipe once I get good coverage on the letters. And this worked really well. I didn't know if this effect would work at all. It was totally an experiment, and I'm so glad I tried it because I really like how it looks. And I'm gonna do the You Pick Open Daily on the bottom, the same exact way with the Antique Wax by Waverly. Just make sure everything has good coverage before I do that drag to get that nice wood grain finish. And that is all there is to the top and the bottom signs there as far as hand painting those. And this stuff dries pretty fast, but I'm trying to give it a little bit of a speed up with my heat gun. And I'm going to remove my tape. And the satisfying part is always pulling off the stencils, right? So once you get it off, then you just can use your little weeder to weed off the middle pieces. And I do have all of the fonts that I used for Cricut for all of the signs today, and I will post it in my video link description, all of the fonts that I used, because I used several different ones today. And again, I'm just using my weeder to pull out the little extra pieces in the cursive letters. Trust me, I know it says Fresh Farm and I make it all the way to the end. Finish the project, still don't know, for real. I was just working, not reading what I was putting down at all, but lesson learned, I will read my stencils from now on because that's supposed to say Farm Fresh. Okay, so this is the pumpkins. I wanted this font to be really bold and eye-catching, and I'm gonna put that on the second row there. And I'm using that paper transfer paper again, and I'm trying to kind of fold it to see where the ends are. I'm trying to get it on there. I made it about as big as it possibly could for that board. And there we go, we have pumpkins. So I'm just gonna scrape that down and make sure that's good and attached. And I am gonna paint that in, I think it's called Pumpkin, the color Chalk Paint by Waverly. It's a nice orange color. I really like it for fall. And I really like it together with that agave color. So those are pretty big letters. So I'm just scraping it down all around all the sides to make sure they're good and down. And then again, I'm using some painter's tape to protect my surface so that I don't make a huge mess here when I go in with that pumpkin color. And I'm using one of those stencil foam brushes from the Dollar Tree and just stippling all that paint on. I want to have really good coverage. I'm painting that orange over that blue. So I found that I needed like a lot of paint to make that really nice and bright. I really want that to stick out against the blue sign. Once I get it on there, I am drying, and if I see any blue showing through, I'm just going back in and adding a little bit more paint to try to get a solid coat. And removing my painter's tape. And my stencils. I really like how that turned out. I think it looks really pretty. And just using my weeder to pull out the inside pieces of my letters. And giving that a quick dry. I was thinking, what can I put like on the bottom sides? And I have these wood pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. They have them this year, and these little wood clips from the Dollar Tree. Now, I like both of them. I like the big one and I like the small one, so I decided to just go ahead and use both. But the little ones had little, I'm kind of off angle there. They had little clothespins on the back, so I'm just popping those off. And then I'm gonna go in with that same pumpkin chalk paint by Waverly and paint those all over. The really good thing about the small ones is that they have the black ink on them, like with the, you can see the shape of the pumpkin. And so I'm gonna use that with my green paint pen. I picked up these paint pens on Amazon and they are fantastic. I'll post a link to those as well. And they have great colors. I'm using the green one for the leaves and my brown one for the stem. And then I'm gonna use that to put some lines on my big pumpkin. And I ended up not liking that. I thought it was a little too bright. I'm going in and coloring in the stem. I found that I thought that those lines were a little too straight and not really what I was going for. So I'm trying to go over it with some more pumpkin to make that like a little less detailed. I was trying to make it how I like it, and then I'm just like, never mind. I'll just do the other side. So this time, instead of a paint pen, I just used an ink pen. And the lines were way more faded, and I was more flexible for me to get that curve in there. So then I'm just using the paint pen for the stem. And I like how that turned out better. So I'm ready to attach. I'm just going to use wood glue to attach my 3 small pumpkins down in this corner. Now, when I pulled the clothespin off the back of them, it did split the wood a little bit, but it's okay. All the damage is on the back. You can't really tell. But they are super cute. I'm so glad that the Dollar Tree is finally getting these fall things in. And some of the stores have a great selection of fall stuff. I'm so excited. And then I'm going to put the large one over on this side. I'm just going to use a combination of hot glue and wood glue on that side and slap that on the side. And those dry pretty good. I'm trying to decide what else it needs. Then the problem. I read it. It said Fresh Farm. I wanted it to say Farm Fresh Pumpkins. I don't know why. I can't even blame it on my Cricut. I typed it in that way. And then I didn't notice it. Nobody noticed it. My son didn't notice it. My husband didn't notice it. Nobody noticed it. I was so mad. So what I did is just had to go in and cover that with some more ivory chalk paint. Distress it with the antique wax again. Make the stencil again. This time it says Farm Fresh, not Fresh Farm. Oh my gosh, I will read my stencils from now on. I was so mad. This was so much extra work, and my TV show was coming on. So I was like, I was not very happy. But I fixed it, and I'm happy with it now. I almost left it, for real, but I knew it would drive me crazy. So there we go, Farm Fresh Pumpkins. And I always seem to need a little bit more distressing, right? So I'm using some of that ivory chalk paint and one of those chunky brushes. And I am distressing all of the orange parts of the sign too, to kind of make those look weathered and blend in. And we're done with our pumpkin patch sign. I love that sign. It turned out so good, even though it caused me some trouble. And I'm just following that up with a baby white. And I think that is perfect. I found this little raffia bow. I think I took it off of another fall project that I worked on recently, and I thought it would be really cute on the large pumpkin. So I just attached that with a little hot glue, and it covers up that little whole area for the top of the ornament. It gives it a little fun feel.
And this is how it turned out. Sometimes you get so busy crafting that you're not even realizing what you're doing. Do you ever make an oopsie like that when you're crafting? I'd like to thank everybody so much for watching today's video, and especially to these crafty beach bums for sending me super thanks underneath of my YouTube videos. It's a quick, easy way to support your favorite creator here on YouTube, and also these crafty beach bums for buying me a coffee on Buy Me a Coffee. And I always have a link to that in my video description. Okay, it's time for the final reveal. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment your favorite DIY below, and don't forget to subscribe.
Open up the window. I'm breathing in the last of September. I can feel the wind blow, and And the late summer sky is like a giant ember. Everything is turning into gold. When the autumn leaves are playing chase, it puts a smile up on my face. They leave their branches one by one and whirl around there just for fun. Some are faster, some are slow, and some are high and some are low. Dancing through the last days of September. Since I was a little child, every year for as long as I remember, all the leaves were running wild, going all the way until November. Turn the world around us into gold. When the autumn leaves are playing chase, it puts a smile up on my face. They leave their branches one by one and whirl around there just for fun. Some are faster, some are slow, and some are high and some are low. Dancing through the last days of September. I wonder where they're going, the flight of swallows sailing through the sky. There's no way of knowing, but maybe someplace far from you and I. When the autumn leaves are playing